12 o'clock. Do you want to start out in prayer, Jacob?
Oh, sure. Here comes one more person. Sure, let's start in prayer. God, thank you for this space, this time. Lord, I pray that we will be blessed with the creativity, the innovation, and the new ideas that will be shared here. Lord, I pray that this will be shared with those who need to hear this message after the recording's made. And Lord, I just pray that it will bless pregnancy clinics, pro-life people, and followers of Jesus in the ways that you see that would work well. And pray this all in your name, Jesus. Amen.
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 All right. Well, welcome, everybody. This is Webinar Wednesday. So Webinar Wednesday came from Sister Paula, who used to do international life services with Advanced Training Institute. And when 2020 started, we had to go virtual for a year because the in-person was canceled. And so she did Webinar Wednesdays from January through December in the year of 2020 or 2021, one of those. And we essentially picked up the name from her and are continuing with trying to provide advanced education, not entry level, but advanced education through this platform. And today we got a really awesome, is it Lyric? Am I saying that right? Is it Lyric?
Lyric.
So Lyric,
Spot
I
on.
met at the 115 forum where there's a lot of pro-life leaders coming together, and she was one of the people who presented in this space, Faces of Abortion. And it was so remarkable that I essentially said, hey, I would love to have you on our Webinar Wednesday coming up. And we had one open up so we could get her in sooner than later. And so here we are. And so Lyric, the floor is yours.
Awesome. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks, Jacob, and
Sure.
excited for everyone here. So in a nutshell about Faces of Choice, I guess we'll start there and lay the foundation and then go from there. So I started Faces of Choice right around that same time in the COVID era in 2020. Formation began in late 2019, but into 2020 is when we started becoming visible. And the purpose behind Faces of Choice is to highlight survivors of abortion. And so very specifically, I'm talking about real men and women who were aborted while they were in their mother's womb, but who survived the process. You may know Melissa Oden with the Abortion Survivors Network, Claire Colwell, Gianna Jessen. These are some of the more prominent faces of individuals that we know who have actually survived abortion procedures. And so the reason that I founded Faces of Choice is because I believe that the key to changing the cultural conversation about abortion lays within this narrative arc, and that the narrative of survivors changes the dynamic pretty significantly. If you look a survivor of abortion in the eye and you tell them, I supported your mother's choice, that changes the conversation completely, because had that choice gone to fruition, the person that you're speaking to would not be in front of you. So I'm hoping to bring culture to a place that they have to face the reality of what choice truly is and capture truth, or capture language rather, with truth in human form. If you look at every great humanitarian effort of our era, of the civil rights movement, you have Rosa Parks and MLK who gave face to the civil rights movement. You can look at Elie Wiesel coming out of Auschwitz, who actually conveyed the lack of humanity that was transpiring and humanized the struggle that was happening during the Holocaust. And so these types of historical dynamics really demonstrate how having a survivor narrative can change context significantly. So in 2020, one of the initial things that I began working towards was launching a Super Bowl initiative. I wanted to run an ad of survivors, and I worked with Melissa Oden of this Abortion Survivors Network and many other survivors to record them and put together a commercial that I wrote of these survivors, and I wanted to get this on the World Cup. So I applied many months in advance and worked with a media buyer for more than half a year with the network. But just days before the actual Super Bowl ad, we were blocked. We weren't rejected. We weren't accepted. They simply would not give us the dignity of a response. This was during cancel culture. This was right before COVID. And this was also the Fox Sports Network. So you had kind of a disparity of desire here, where on one hand, Fox is a more conservative base, but also you're in the midst of cancel culture. So as a result, we were blocked, and we ended up working with My Faith Votes. They put together a petition of about 150,000 people that contacted the network, crashed their servers, asking them to run the ad, but to no avail. But what did happen is there was a really large media blitz, and this becomes important later. And through that media blitz, the commercial played at the March for Life, and there was a lot of national dialogue about the conversation of survivors of abortion. And I'll come back to that later. But fast forward to today. So COVID happened right after that, shut down the world, changed the dynamic of what we were approaching. But fast forward to today, I have been working every year quietly to have my media buyer continue seeking approval through some main source of media to reach, in my view, America with the message of survivors. But in late last year, I received word that we had been approved not just for an American campaign, but for a global campaign. We've been approved to run this ad during the World Cup this year. And the audience for the World Cup this year is between 1 billion with a B and 5 billion people. The live final alone on July 19th is anticipated to bring in over 1.5 billion people on that day alone. So we are talking about the potential to truly capture the global cultural conversation and have people understand that choice is a person. My aim after the end of this run, this month long, it's from June 11th to July 19th run, is to help people, regardless of whether they are pro-abortion or pro-life, that when they hear the word choice, they see the face of a survivor. That's my only goal. That's the stepping stone for number one through changing language. But I realized that after being approved so easily for this World Cup campaign, after what we went through before, that this could not be the sum total of the mission. There had to be something more, that we were approved almost a year in advance. And the Lord helped me understand that the purpose of this is twofold. One is, yes, to capture language with truth in human form. But two is for Faces of Choice to use its global microphone to be a routing system back to the entire pro-life movement as a whole. If we have women confronting the truth that choice is a person, and they say, okay, great, I have an unexpected pregnancy, choice is a person, now what? Unless there is a net to actually catch these women that is active and vibrant and visible nationally and internationally, this could actually create an opposite effect. This could create kind of a fallout effect, and we don't want that. So my goal that I've been working towards, at the 115 and for quite some time, is to amplify the efforts of the pro-life movement as a whole. I'll be speaking at NIFLA next month. We have a lot of other strong connections that are coming together. For your understanding, one of the things that we're working on right now, I have some software engineers who are hard coding for me a globe on the website. I've spoken with Jor-El of Heartbeat and so many other, wonderful leaders. And what we're wanting to do is, because we're expecting potentially hundreds of millions of hits on this website, this globe on the homepage, we want to serve as I said, a routing system back to every pregnancy resource center, maternity home, post-abortive healing, all of these different ministries, adoption care throughout the country and the world, so that when a woman sees this website immediately in front of her, she has the capacity to tap on this globe and put in her zip code and immediately be brought to her exact location for the resource that she wanted. She can specifically indicate pregnancy resource center, maternity home, whatever. We have quite a few others. We're talking with Rachel of Infinite Worth and other organizations for emergency hotlines on the website, nurse care, things like that. So again, our goal is to amplify what you all have been doing for so long to create this infrastructure. And my plan is simply to say, look, Planned Parenthood and its proxies have walked in lockstep for decades. They have the media, they have the attention. But now that we have the attention, we are routing it back to the ecosystem of a life-affirming sense of care for woman and child. And so that's how we're seeking to supplant what has been done and what I call a covenant with death for decades. We've also learned that Planned Parenthood is launching something called Plan B TV that will be running in concert during the World Cup. This, of course, is to target, I think, a contingency of the Latin American community, because they're trying so hard to flip this life question, not just in the States, but in Mexico and in other Latin American countries. So we really are battling this effort. There are also some things that are very exciting with respect to this ad. I can't go into detail, but I will say that we have some very famous faces, world famous faces, who are very likely going to be participating in this ad campaign and potentially bringing even more of a spotlight to this conversation. Another effort that we're working to launch, we're going to be working with Salem Media beginning in about 2 weeks. We are wanting to target churches as well. We're working with the gentleman that targeted churches for Passion of the Christ and many other movements, so to speak. Excuse me. And we're wanting to have July 19th, which is a Sunday, serve as what we're considering calling Life Choice Sunday, where pastors around the country are motivated to, perhaps for the first time, have a message of compassion and care towards their congregants, where we say, look, 1 in 3 of the women in your church are self-reporting as post-abortive. That's not even talking about those who, because of the shame and the stigma, have not come forward. So keeping quiet about this is actually not shepherding and tending to your flock, as I know you want to, but rather it's perpetuating and promulgating this culture of keeping, hiding unwanted things in the fog and staying in the dark. And we can't keep doing that. So we have a whole plan that we're developing to reach the churches. And this emanated from Pastor Jack Hibbs of Calvary Chapel, who is actually a survivor of abortion himself. Back in 2020, when our Super Bowl ad was blocked, we found out that Pastor Jack and many other pastors actually engaged in an Abortion Survivor Sunday kind of initiative on Super Bowl Sunday, where they played the commercial and then they talked about abortion in their churches, many of them for the first time. So we're trying to replicate this in an actual structured environment. And looping back to what I was talking about before with respect to the few million people that saw the ad in 2020, the reason that became important for us is because although most of those, or I would say the majority of those viewers, were kind of in the pro-life echo chamber, many were not. And many of them were post-abortive women who reached out to us and said, when we first saw your ad campaign, we were actually scared, because we were worried that in seeing the faces of survivors of abortion, we would instead see the faces of our children whom we aborted, but who did not survive. But, God was really merciful, because in developing this campaign, and actually from a conversation with my mom and some others, we ended up developing kind of an episodic testimonial for each one of these survivors, where they had the opportunity to speak out about their story individually. And every single one of these survivors stated that they forgave their birth mothers. The majority of them had the opportunity to find and reconcile with their birth mothers, and many of them have good relationships with their birth mothers now. So when we're talking about a holistic form of messaging, we're not just saying this is an abortion survivors campaign. We are working with abortion survivors to change language. That is the reason. But to me, this is a way of kicking open the door to the post-abortive women, to the adoption conversation, and we're engaging in that now, to the ecosystem of the pro-life resource world. We're talking with churches about potentially having Embrace Grace be part of a toolkit that we send out, where baby showers are things that are promoted in churches now. We are really looking to create a very holistic endeavor that reflects the entirety of the pro-life movement as a whole. So I have some ideas for how your particular ministry, regardless of what it is, can participate in this, which I will get to in just a minute. But I want to preface that by saying that my idea of participation is not something that reflects back to Faces of Choice. My idea of participation is collaboration of timeline, that when we are having this global campaign reaching up to 5 billion people potentially, but at least 1 billion people, where we are working to change language, that what you all would do is amplify your own ministry in your spheres of influence. That's literally all we're asking you to do. So, excuse me, I'm going to briefly see if I can successfully share this screen. The commercials that we're working on for the World Cup, we're still trying to finish up with some of those nuances. As I said, we may have some famous faces in that. We are recording with some other survivors as I speak. But what I'm going to show you is the 2-minute ad that we actually played during the March for Life. Melissa Oden actually introduced it in 2020 from the stage at the March for Life. This was the initial commercial that I wrote in 2019. And I also want to show you one of the testimonies of the survivors. So it's going to be less, probably 3 minutes total. And then I'll come back to some of my ideas for specifically how you guys can participate to amplify your ministries. And then I would love to open this up for questions or for other ideas that you may have that can be shared for a collaborative effort. So let's see if I can do this the right way. Can y'all see my screen? Okay.
Can you look me in the eye?
Can you look me in the eye and tell me that I shouldn't exist?
That I should be dead?
That I deserve to die that day.
Can you look me in the eye and tell me that my very survival was a mistake?
A terrible toll on society?
Can you look me in the eye and tell me that in my most vulnerable state, I was nothing more than a parasite?
A collection of body parts. Subhuman?
Worthless?
In 1952, I survived multiple abortion attempts.
DNC abortion.
An instrument abortion.
DNC abortion.
Heritage abortion.
A vacuum aspiration. An induced
A
abortion.
saline infusion abortion that was meant to poison and scald me to death. I am the face of choice. I am that choice.
These are actual human beings who survived abortion procedures when they were still in their mother's wombs. These are the eyes, voices, and faces of choice. Choice is not merely a word. Choice is a person. Learn their stories.
So that is the first ad. And again, that's a 2-minute long ad that played at the March for Life. Our ad slots, although they run from June 11th to July 19th, are going to be 30-second segments each. And they will be in multiple languages. They will be showing different survivors. But what I'm going to pull up next is a commercial of one of the survivors, one of the episodic testimonials that I mentioned. So you can kind of see the perspective that we are bringing into this. And let's again see if I can do this the right way. Bear with me 1 second. I'm going to have to get out of full screen before I can do that. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we can.
In December of 1975, I survived a DNC abortion. A strong, determined single mom raised me. And now in my 40s, I learned a piece of my story that I wasn't aware of until now. See, in October of 1975, my mom found out that she was pregnant with me. And in December, she chose to have a full DNC abortion. By February, she discovered that the abortion had failed and she was still pregnant. The laws at the time dictated that she was too far along to attempt another abortion. She was angry, afraid, and wanted to sue the hospital. But I was born full term in July of 1976. Finding out this information shocked me. I don't know how or why, but I am so grateful that I survived. I catch myself thinking, what if? What if I hadn't survived? What if that December day was the end for me? See, abortion is not a simple fix. From the decision to the aftermath, there is nothing simple about it. My mom passed away decades ago, and I wish she were here with me now. Because if she were, I would tell her that I love her and that I forgive her and that I understand that she made a decision that was hard at the time. But you can't give away what you don't have. And I have experienced the love and the forgiveness of Jesus in my life, and I would want her to experience that same kind of love. So I'm sharing my story now to encourage other women who have had an abortion that there is forgiveness, that there is healing, and there is hope. You can reclaim your story through Jesus. Maybe my story will shed light on a complicated topic, and maybe during that moment of choice, another woman would choose life. My mom had a choice. I am the face of choice. I am that choice.
Wow.
So each one of these stories is different. I mean, we have Josiah Presley, who survived a curettage abortion in South Korea, who is missing a part of his arm as a result. We have Hope Hoffman, who survived the DNC abortion. She has a scar from the front to the back of her head. Oh, I think I'm still playing something, aren't I? Hold on just a second. That's coming from me. Can y'all hear that? Sorry, guys.
Really? Mostly hear
Okay,
you.
good. Okay, good. I was playing the next that's in the queue for the Faces of Choice playlist in the background. Hope Hoffman, who survived a DNC abortion, and you see the scar from the front to the back of her head. She was aborted at 10 and a half weeks, and as a result has cerebral palsy. We have twin survivors, multiple twin survivors who survived, but their twins did not survive. Each and every one of these individuals has a perspective that is so unique and so different to this conversation, but their human presence redefines what choice is. And what it does is it helps people understand that choice isn't a what. Choice is a who, with a name and a face and a story of survival. And so when you have that established, when you have that first principles concept established, and then you can actually go back like Denisha did and actually have the conversation about post-abortive healing, all of these different things, that's how we view this conversation actually being successful, is through ministries like yours, through pregnancy resource centers, through all of these different things. So there are quite a few ways that we are beginning the stages of what a partnership would look like. And again, it's nothing official. Really what we would hope to have is just to know that regions are covered, and that's a lot of what we're working on, because we want to make sure that when this goes out there, when this is global, because the crazy thing about this too, most Americans don't give a hoot about the World Cup. I'm not a soccer aficionada. In fact, ask me something about this prior to the World Cup Faces of Choice endeavor, and I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about it, except that they call it the wrong thing. It's not football, it's soccer. But now, for the first time, America is actually hosting the World Cup for the first time in over 30 years. And we're having 16 host cities. Each of those cities is having 8 to 10 games. And then Mexico and Canada are also hosting, but there is going to be eyes on this World Cup game from America in a way that we have really not experienced before. So the conversation is extremely different. The ability to capture attention through novelty is extremely different. And we're hoping, especially in those regions, that there will not be a single pro-life desert of resources available. So some of the things that we're hoping to see, we're sending out toolkits soon to participating pregnancy resource centers and churches, just with information about what exactly we're doing, about language that you can use if you want to, purely optional, just to help bolster these conversations. But what we're really hoping for are things like, if you have not used Google Ad Grants in the past, learn how to use those now. If you are a 501c3 nonprofit, you have up to $10,000 a month of free ad credit that you can use at your disposal. What we're asking for you to do is spend time figuring out a plan for your specific ministry that in June and July of this year, you can amplify your voice and your sphere of influence in your community to a much greater degree than you normally do. And there are so many different ways to do that. So Google Ad Grants is one way of doing that. If you're in a host city, perhaps organizing an event where you are present outside of some of those host cities, not mentioning Faces of Choice, but saying things like, women's healthcare, we're here for you. These are options. Do you need, unexpected pregnancy? Do you need resources in our area? Here we are. Be visible. Find ways to be visible in your community. If you're not in a host city or in a host region, perhaps reallocate some of your energy or time to really, really digging into your social media and getting a digital ad campaign going at that time. Some of the international ministries that we're currently speaking with, are planning to run some major commercials that they developed probably 5 or 6 years ago. They're planning to flood social media through their own digital ad campaign with these. And what they do is they simply announce, we're here and we're here to help you. So again, I'm looking for collaboration. I'm not looking for any, boomerang back to Faces of Choice. I'm looking for you to find creative ways to amplify your organization specifically during the month of June and July. So a collaborative timing effort is what I'm hoping to see. And then through these toolkits that we'll be sending out to the churches, we have about 150,000 pastor lists that we'll be receiving with Salem Media that we're working with. And then potentially one with a few 100,000 more. I know there are only about 300,000 churches in America, so I'm assuming that this list also has some duplicates in terms of churches, so maybe youth pastors, other ministry leaders or coordinators. But what we're going to be doing is when we get participation agreements, which is just saying, yes, we want to say something on July 19th, and we're developing an email campaign focusing on the woman in the church who feels silenced by the lack of conversation about abortion, who feels that her shame is being amplified through that. We're trying to reach pastors through that messaging. But when these pastors reach out and say, we'll participate, we'll say something, hopefully they'll do that on the 19th, and we will be sending them a toolkit both before and after, a toolkit to prepare. And that preparation means that they're going to say, look, we're here for you. Our arms are open. Think of us as the warm hug. But in that hug, we're turning you on to the resources in our community that actually are prepared and equipped to help you. The pregnancy resources, all of these things. So that's one of the reasons why we're pulling all of this data together to put it on this giant globe on the website. That will be one of the resources that the pastors can use. They can put their zip code in and say, this is what's immediately in our area. This is where we can direct any women who come forward to us as a result of this Life Choice Sunday event. So that is really, in a nutshell, what we are trying to accomplish, and some of the means through which we see that helping. It's just really the call, the charge is to take time now in April to plan to be visible, more visible than you are now, in June and in July. So I'm happy to answer questions. The other thing that I would say, though, just a few notes that I had for myself, make sure that your websites are optimized during this time. Make sure that you are prepared potentially for a slight uptick in responses. We're hoping that we're going to be seeing that nationwide and worldwide. We just got word back that we've been approved to run this in Russia. There are quite a few other countries that we're working on, even China, and there's a lot of complicating factors relating to that for more reasons than one. But we are trying to bring this into countries that typically would be blocking out this message, and we need wisdom in that. I mean, we don't want to align with the government of China because there's a whole line of ramifications to that. We even had, before the war started, we even had entree into Iran. But the problem with that, if we align with that, is although Iran is a pro-life government, the way that they handle that is if a woman is caught even seeking an abortion, she's hung at dawn. And so the thought was, if we in any way align with a regime that's doing that, then once the Iranian people are, God willing, free at some point, any pro-life messaging that is entrenched and entangled in that regime, they might just reject and go full force into a pro-abortion mindset. So there's a lot of questions that we're having to prayerfully walk through and discern in these conversations. So I appreciate your prayer in that. But like I said, I'd like to open the floor to questions and also to other ideas from your areas of expertise of how you think that you can amplify your ministry, and how that may apply to other ministries in your spheres of influence. So thank you guys.
So Lyric. Well, so if you have a question, you can either unmute yourself and ask it, or you can put it into the chat. And I've got a question for you, Lyric. How can each person that hears this webinar verify they are on your list, or provide their info or double check their info on your list? And what kind of info are you looking for? Does it include hours of operation? How much contact info is on this list?
Great question. So right now we're, as I said, in conversation with Heartbeat and others about their lists. So what I would start with is reach out to those major organizations like Heartbeat International and make sure that you are active and functioning and verified on their worldwide directory. But you can also do double duty in that and send me an email. There's 2 easy ways to do that. facesofchoice@facesofchoice.org. That is my personal email. But you can also go to the website. I saw that Sandy just posted it in the chat. We have a Get Involved tab. And so you can put down the name of your organization, who you are. If you want to stay in contact or you have a direct message to send me, you can do it through that avenue as well. All of those messages go directly to me. So, but I would just start by making sure that you are current with all of your information, just the totality of it, phone number, website, make sure all of that is up to date, all of that is functioning. And the thing about this too, why I decided early on that we don't want to just funnel to just a couple of main national organizations is because, regionally, when we boil things down to it, each area is different in specific nuanced ways that we don't understand. So that's why I want every single person, ministry, and national organization to be represented, because everyone has their own specific wheelhouse. And I want to honor those wheelhouses and amplify those areas in this endeavor.
I really like your heart. You're pouring into all the ships versus trying to raise all the ships at once in the harbor. All right, so who has a question? Don't be shy. Or if you have a half-built question, that's okay too. We'll work through it together. So while we're waiting, Sandy, did you have any questions or thoughts?
So I guess one of my thoughts is when you talked about they'll send out information, so that you have a complete packet, for them to be able to have a step-by-step type.
Yeah, so we are developing that right now. We're in the throes of developing that fully. So a toolkit that would both encompass, are you talking about to resource centers or to pastors or to everything? What specifically?
I'm thinking to pregnancy centers. Do they have social media posts, maybe a landing page, something that they can point toward?
So we hope to have a landing page launched by April 15th specifically for this effort. And we are finishing up putting together a toolkit that will say, these are all the options that you have. These are the things that we would kind of push you towards and say, please do this. And that would be things like the Google ads and things to where you are really amplifying your ministry. But then we will also have options if you want to directly connect with what Faces of Choice is doing during that time, and just kind of have some pre-scripted ads or social media posts, or you want to cross post or anything like that. We're going to make all of that available as we get closer to that time.
Nice.
So I'm wondering, from someone who saw the videos for the first time here, if you would share the impact that it had on you, or how it resonated with you. So I'll just say, watching those videos, it gave me goosebumps this time, and also it's difficult to process the emotions that are connected with watching the faces of people who survived an abortion. It's a very emotionally complex experience, I think.
It is. And, I can tell you that some of this was recorded in a studio that I rented back in 2020. Some of it was or late 2019. I don't remember. Some of them were recorded on site, but I can tell you in the studio, there wasn't a dry eye. And a lot of people that were talking about their stories for the first time experienced just kind of a swelling of emotion to their own story that they hadn't experienced before. So that's also why we want to make sure that the safety net is in place so that when your normal person that hasn't really put a lot of thought into the issue of abortion, or who has swallowed hook, line, and sinker the idea that it's just a clump of cells, that when they're looking another person in the eye and hearing this for the first time, that they do have a safe place to go. And not just a place that's going to shield them from the truth, but that allows the light of truth to do its healing work in a place that is actually loving. That really is the goal. We're not trying to hide people or shield people from the truth, because that's the most damaging thing that you can do. But we want to make sure that when that happens, it's not compounding injury. I see Haley.
Yeah, so if you could read through that and then I'll let you read it out loud. If you read it out loud for the recording, and then you can work through it as well.
Who is your target audience, clients or donors? I do social media for both, and I want to be cautious sharing with clients to not scare them. Also, how did you get into this area of work and how has it been going? I am new to it, but grew up Christian, so I do agree. But it is a work field that is tough to be in all the time. Thank you, Haley. So when you asked who my target audience is, I'm assuming you're talking about for the Google ads? Or for the ad itself. I'm a little bit confused on that because that'll change the area of direction. But I see you typing, so I'll just wait. I think you're talking about the Google ads.
I think she's talking about faces of choice.
Okay.
Haley, you could unmute yourself and just ask the question if it's easier for you.
If you have the option to unmute.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the Faces of Choice campaign itself, my target audience, so I'm for the ads messaging. So I'm not sure when you join, the World Cup ad is actually worldwide. So we are targeting our minimum audience target is 1 billion people with the World Cup. So there's 104 matches from June 11th to July 19th. And so our target is quite literally culture. We're trying to not have a cultural impact. We're not wanting to just throw a bucket of cold water on people's faces. What we're trying to do is capture languages. And my way of framing this is capturing language with truth in human form. And the goal is that when you hear the word choice after this campaign, if you're pro-life or pro-abortion, the change is that you see the human face of a survivor of abortion by the end of it. So the audience is worldwide. There's the potential that 5 billion people could see this. We don't know, but we know it's going to at least hit that billion target. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have a distinct cultural shift. And if you think about it, and this conversation has just been so nuanced in the pro-life sphere. But if you think about it, for the preponderance of human history, slavery was viewed not just as a component of society that was normal, but it was actually viewed as the foundation to a thriving society, to a flourishing society. And now fast forward to now, for the first time in human history, the majority of the world agrees that slavery is morally aberrant, that it's a moral evil. That's the kind of shift that I'm talking about. And again, I mean, the way that slavery was entrenched, not just as normalized, but as necessary. I believe the same thing can happen, but a huge part of that must be with language. When words lose their meaning, people lose their lives. And that's what's been happening every day here. So my goal with the ad campaign is to actually expose truth in language in a way that we haven't had the opportunity to yet. And you asked, so we're not targeting donors. We are, like I said, we are targeting humanity. As lame as that sounds, as corny as that sounds. How did I get into this? My background is actually in physics, and I was studying international relations, intelligence, and defense. So this is not my area. I had a dream in 2017, 2018. I woke up in the middle of the night at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I wrote down the entire 2-minute script that you guys may have seen, and then kind of forgot about it. And then in 2019, that's when the Lord started moving in this. I pushed for the Super Bowl thing in 2020. Then COVID happened. Then I went to study abroad in the UK for a little while, and then came back, upon having found out that the World Cup ad had been approved. And I was also blessed with a great heritage. I mean, my parents are attorneys, and they had worked with Jay Sekulow back in the day to enable people to pray outside of Planned Parenthoods and abortion clinics in Texas. But another part of this too, just in a little bit of who I am, is that I was home educated, and the component to that I value most is that I wasn't taught what to think. I was taught how to think. And I realized that all the things that I care about, from the physics to the international relations to everything else coming back together, hinges on a very central first principles question, because it all comes down to preservation of life for me. I mean, the thing that I'm working towards is saving people from EMPs, and that's a whole other story, electronic pulse type situation. But the central first principles question is, whose are you? In whose image are you made? Because unless you get that right from the start, then everything from abortion at the beginning to euthanasia to trafficking and domestic violence and cheating your neighbor out of something, or cheating on your taxes, none of those things will properly align unless you get the first principles questions down of whose are you and whose image are you made. And so in realizing that, and then charging forward with trying to effectuate that, that Imago Dei context, that question starts with life at its inception and conception. And so that's kind of how I got both feet into this. And God's just been having fun ever since. And I'm just along for the ride with my Diet Coke and extra cups of coffee. Lots of Diet Coke.
So good. All right, so if anyone has a question, feel free to ask it. Otherwise, I'll buy you some more time by just reiterating when you said using Google Ads to drive up more traffic. IRF.com is here to help you with your Google Ads. We work with about 70 to 100 accounts based on whether they're active or just simply established. And so we would love to help pregnancy clinics with that. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask at this point? Anyone here? And Sandy, I think we should probably work at try and build a 360 content piece that includes social media before that June deadline. Sounds like we might need to build something if we have that window of time to do it, to help people with this
oh my gosh,
idea.
Guys, that would be such a blessing if I could work with y'all. I would, oh my gosh, I would be so thrilled.
Landing page, social media combo with the Google Ads strategy. Yeah, that'd be really good.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we could have.
Yeah, go ahead, Sandy.
Oh, I was just going to say we could put together a blog type situation with a landing page and the social media, and then emails even going out to like the churches and donor base. So like that, I think would be really effective for the centers to be able to get that out. Yeah, in addition to what you have. Yeah, because I'd like to see what you have. So we're not, double doing something that, instead working together and being able to cooperate together on that. Yeah.
And that's great. And I'm putting a lot of work into what I have, but I'll be frank, y'all's areas of expertise are going to add something to this and probably fill in a lot of holes that I will admit right now I'm anticipating that I'm missing. So having that being filled in would take a lot off of my brain to know that I'm actually doing this and stewarding this the right way. Because, that's amazing. That is always something that I want to make sure I'm approaching this the right way. So I would love that. Thank you.
It'd be exciting to have some kind of like package that we could give to a pregnancy clinic to share with their local churches that might include like a slide and some kind of like booth piece, or, for a portion of a booth at that church. Which Sunday would be the most appropriate Sundays for this?
July 19th. So that is the final, and they're expecting 1.9 billion people to be watching this final. And so that day, so it's kind of like Super Bowl Sunday, but on steroids. And so that's why, and that gives us a lot of time too, to continue working with these churches. I mean, I've been reaching out to I've been talking to Orthodox bishops, Catholic priests, Calvary Chapel, everything that you can think. I've been trying to get people, hey, if anybody has connections to the Pope, please let me know. I'll just throw that out there. But we are trying to really make this a robust situation where pastors actually feel permission. Because something that I really noticed is that so many of these pastors are afraid of wounding their congregants in a way that they think would scare them off from the gospel. But the truth is that avoiding these conversations, actually, like I discussed with that woman, or did I bring that up in this conversation about the woman that sat in the same pew? Maybe I didn't. She sat in the
Yeah.
same pew for 20 years in her church. She sat in the same seat the week before she had her abortion and the same seat the week after she had her abortion. And in the span of 20 years, she did not once ever hear her pastor bring up the issue of abortion. And what she derived from that was not that abortion was okay. It was not that her pastor didn't care. It was not that her pastor didn't know. It was actually that abortion was the unforgivable sin. And I have spoken with so many women who have felt the same thing, that it is off limits to speak about this in the church because the church is filled with holy people. The church is filled with people who will condemn. The church is filled with people who might say, you're too bad to be here. And if that's the messaging that's going out by not addressing this issue, when we literally address everything else, and 1 in 3 women at minimum, 1 in 3 people or more have abortion in their past in the church, what are we doing? So that's what we're trying to break free through Life Choice Sunday on July 19th, is to say, I don't care what your political persuasion is as the church. This isn't about politics. This is not a political conversation. This is a human conversation. Just like slavery is not a political conversation anymore, and globally it's not a political conversation, life shouldn't be either. These issues should be apolitical. They should be purely human in orientation. And so that's what we are trying to say on the 19th, is irrespective of where you land on every other issue, at least broach this subject with your church and create a safe space for women to come forward so you can direct them to post-abortive healing, so men with abortion in their past can have the same option presented to them, so women in unexpected pregnancies can be routed towards pregnancy resource centers to genuine adoption options, and things of that nature. So Haley, so can we get material from you to send to our list of churches that support Parkville Women's Clinic? Yes. So we will hopefully have those materials this month. We are working hard to get all of that developed, and I'm probably going to delay it a little bit because I'll probably pass it by Jacob and Sandy. So once we get those
yeah,
done.
we'll work with you to build we call them 360 content packages or things like that, where it includes like a blog article, social media, imagery, sometimes some videos or reels.
That'd be
English
great.
first, Spanish second, and then we can also include some church slides, and then maybe some church pieces to send to a church, like maybe like a pre-built e-letter or something
That'd be
like
great.
that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's see, Jared, Muriel, any questions or comments? We got my choices, Tamara, Taylor. Yeah, so this has been really good. As questions come back, we'll be sending off this to our e-letter list. We'll be putting it onto our podcast as well, so people can hear it through that. And I'm really glad we got you on sooner than later, instead of having this after the fact, saying what did happen. I'm really excited that you're on before, and actually with enough time for someone to actually get involved and engaged. And I think we had someone cancel because we were actually like 6 months booked-ish. And then we had someone cancel, so we got you in earlier, which worked out really well. So that worked out really good.
Well,
Any
I'm thrilled
questions
and
or
honored
comments,
to be
feel
on
free
here.
to jump in. Yeah, go ahead, Lyric.
I actually have a question for your group. I'll maybe get y'all to talk this way. What is a blockade that you actually envision as you're sitting here hearing me talk? What is something that you think would prevent your particular ministry from participating in something like this, or other ministries as a whole in this sphere, in the pro-life sphere?
Oh, we got Haley's typing.
Haley's our hero today.
And Tamara.
Oh, and Tamara. Let's go.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess it's the pastor in the church who often have a hard time bringing up this topic, but that's my guess.
But also in terms of, I think more specifically, what I mean too is you implementing Google Ads for your pregnancy resource center, Or are you deciding during June and July that you're going to hit your spheres of influence hard, that you're going to, maybe put signs in local Paneras for the months of June and July that say, or whatever, cities that you live in that allow billboards and posting to say, we're here, unexpected pregnancy, here are some flyers announcing that we're here. What would stand in the way of you participating in something like that?
Like
Lack of
Tamara
staff
wrote.
to handle this.
Yeah.
That's a very valid thing, Tamara. So from the lack of staff connection, um, trying to think of ways to overcome that, to where there may be some things that are so easy that we put forward that it could maybe take one Saturday, like someone deciding to spend one Saturday to do something for this. Tamara, do you think that if we were able to come with a quick and easy, this will take one day type situation, do you think that for you specifically, if it was like a one weekend, not a Saturday and Sunday, but one Saturday agenda, that you could accomplish it in one Saturday between now and then, do you think that that would be something that pregnancy resource centers like you and you specifically would be more interested in engaging with, if it was literally a step by step, do this, do this, do this, do this, and it's manageable in a certain amount of time? Because I could
While she's
easily,
typing.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because I could easily develop a two-tiered approach here. A quick and easy, this is what you do if you want to have some level of involvement, because we really need you to, versus a more robust, you're all in. How to is great. Okay. First, instead of coming to them with compassion and supporting them and taking away stressors, on reaching her first, abortion-minded women come through our clinical choose life. So yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do, Haley, is to send them to you guys. And that's really the whole approach behind Faces of Choice, is to say, we want you, because the ad is going out. And so, it's being distributed. And so a big part of that, and another thing too that's interesting, the ad that we're playing for the World Cup does not say the word abortion. The ad in the World Cup is only going to say the word choice. And we have worked with this in a very specific way, not only with the FCC and those types of things, but also just in terms of messaging. And so it's to draw people in, and they'll understand what it means, because the dialogue that's going forward with this is not going to be, unclear. And especially if we have, I don't know, like I said, what time you joined the call, but we're potentially having some extremely famous faces taking part in this as well. So there's not going to be a lack of clarity. But that is why, exactly what you said, is why we're wanting all of the pregnancy resources to be made available and to say we're here for you.
At the 115 forum. Oh, go ahead, Sandy.
With the pregnancy centers, I think they constantly walk a fine line of not wanting to push away clients who are scared and intimidated and feel like it's a harsh message. Like, I think that they don't want to feel that judgmentalism. There's a fine line between being bold and speaking the truth and doing that. And I think that that's maybe where Haley's coming from a little bit. Like, she doesn't, and I could be wrong, Haley, but this is what I'm kind of hearing from what you're coming from, is that it making sure that it still has that compassion and love being the overwhelming sense there.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but I do need to clarify one point that I think is important. I'm not asking any pregnancy resource centers or anyone to even mention Faces of Choice. And I think that's a very important clarification on this call. They can if they want to, but that's not my ask. My ask is, make yourself visible during this time frame. I really could not care less if you mention Faces of Choice. We don't need the mention. But what we do need is a very heavy net put in place from the people worldwide who do see this ad. So again, just to reiterate my vision, when a woman sees this ad and she's like, okay, I get it, Choice is a person, She scrolls on Instagram a couple of minutes later, and she ends up seeing an ad targeted saying, Pro-Life Research, Pro-Life Pregnancy Center of Nashville is here to help. And like whatever your messaging is. So it almost feels like coincidence, but it's not. It's collaborative effort where all of the PRCs around the country are stepping in the gap and answering the call. And that's why I'm being a bit pushy about it to say, we need you, and we don't need you to mention us. We need you, to amplify your message, to amplify your mission, and to just be extra visible in June and July. So just to clarify, I am not asking for collaboration of you guys sharing our commercials or saying any of these things. And even with the churches, I'm not asking you guys to go there and say, on July 19th, I want you to talk about Faces of Choice. No, what I'm saying is on July 19th, pastors all around the globe are going to be opening their arms to women who are post-abortive and saying, we're here for you if you need us. No pushing, but if you need us, just know this is not an off-limits conversation. And if it has felt like that in the church, we just want you to know it's not, and we have resources available. So that's the vision. That's the messaging behind what I'm trying. And if I didn't articulate that well early on, I apologize, but that's what I'm trying to achieve through this.
So the message that the centers are going out with is still their own branding and message and their own way of reaching these gals. They're just
100%.
We're just trying to say this is going out, and there's going to be an influx of women who are going to be searching and wanting more answers. And if we're there, the pregnancy centers are there, available, and we have that extra reach during that period of time, then the pregnancy centers will be there to support those that do see that message and need to talk to someone.
Exactly. So I'm not asking you to change your branding one iota. I'm not asking you to change your messaging one iota. The only thing I'm asking you to do differently is to do more of whatever you're doing in June and July, to be more visible in whatever you're doing in June and July. And then if you want to spend extra time and you want to go to churches and ask them to say a paragraph that we will provide. And again, that paragraph is basically just going to say, as a church, we're here for you and we have resources available. That's what we're asking for. And Jacob said, I'm hearing there will be a spike in traffic that is beneficial to be found during this time. Exactly.
Yes.
So we're creating the global conversation about abortion and choice. We just want you to be the net with your particular because that's kind of what I said earlier in the call. Each regional pregnancy resource center, I mean, Houston, I live in Houston. Houston is so different from Dallas. The way that you get through to people in Houston, just a couple of hours away from Dallas, is different. And pregnancy resource centers here are more effective in their way of approaching Houstonians than a Dallas pregnancy resource center would be in reaching Houstonians. So every branding, every messaging, every community is going to have a different need and a different nuance. And that's why I'm saying represent your people as you normally would. Just put in a little bit more muscle to make sure that you're visible in June and July. And I can help you with ways to do that if you'll just participate. So that's kind of, and there was something else. Jacob, you said, please share about who has spoken about abortion.
So at the 115 forum, you shared for about 3 minutes about the different people who have spoken about abortion, but how the survivors of abortion have a unique voice that is more aligned. Can you share about that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you. So I've called what you're talking about is something that I've quirkily named the hierarchy of the right to speak. And so we've seen in culture this idea that promulgates this concept that men do not have any moral authority to speak to the issue of abortion because men cannot have an abortion. And again, I want to preface this by saying that your experiential relationship to something does not change the truth of that situation, but there is leverage in terms of, experience does count for something. So we're gonna agree to that. But we've had this idea that men have no experiential relationship, so they're at the very bottom of this totem pole of being able to speak to the issue of abortion. And right above that, you have women who perhaps have never gotten pregnant. Above that, you have women who have gotten pregnant but have gone to full term, didn't consider an abortion, and they really don't have much room to talk, but more than the men. And then above them, you have the woman who kind of vacillated about whether or not she had an abortion, but maybe she chose life. And then according to this cultural idea, the woman at the very top of this hierarchy is the woman who had an abortion, because her experiential relationship to this conversation is greatest. And as you know, culture also seeks to elevate the women who had an abortion and who claim to be glad that they had an abortion. My contention is that if you want to state that experiential relationship to abortion is the number one permission indicator of whether or not you can speak to it, then it's not the woman at the very top of this totem pole who has had an abortion. Rather, it is the baby who is aborted and who survived the process. So by their logic, either only abortion survivors should be allowed to speak about abortion, or everyone, men included, should be allowed to speak about the issue of abortion. Is that what you were remembering me saying?
Exactly. That was it. I just remember that being very impactful, and I'm really glad you're able to share that here, because I think that's something that it really speaks to the power that comes with this voice of those who survived abortion.
Thank you, Jacob. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right. Well, we are at the 1 hour mark. So many of us
Haley, you're right. It's a hosting city. I'm sorry, Jacob.
Oh yeah. Go ahead and read. Yes, good. We're still good.
No, Haley just said that she's in Kansas City and it is a hosting city for the World Cup. She's right. So don't change our messaging, but get out content, even more of SEOs and ads, because your ads will bring more. Exactly. So, and she said, I do think it is good to target men and women, like you said, because the father of the baby are very influential to the mom. Yes, 100%. Thank you for this information. Thank you, Muriel. Crystal, it is my understanding that Sandy and Jacob and the team will coming up with ads and blogs for this as we're partnering with you. Amazing. Thank you. Sandy, we will work with Lyric and team to create some materials on our end that can include your branding message. We had not talked about this before. Yes, thank you both for jumping on this, but I will make sure we post details as we make this happen. Yeah, that would be great. We're getting some support from Salem starting April 15th. So I think we can just loop in all of these efforts, but I would really like to work with y'all specifically on how to amplify Pregnancy Resource Center messaging. And we will include optional stuff. Like I said, if you want to mention Faces of Choice, you can, but I don't care. That's, again, what I want you to do is to amplify your message. And just, I heard recently from someone, and then I'll be quiet, that J.D. Vance, when he was on the campaign trail, had been sat down by someone in the pro-life movement, and he did not know what a pregnancy resource center was, nor did he know that they existed. If someone at his level is completely ignorant to this, it sends a chill of horror down my spine thinking about all of the people throughout our country who do not know that pregnancy resource centers exist. And as you know, we're accused of being pro-birth, not pro-child, pro-woman. That's what I'm trying to change here. Let's have this global chatter and then have just this guttural cry from the gut of pregnancy resource centers, maternity homes, pro-adoption, rising up in a unified voice and saying, we are here. You can't ignore us anymore. That's what I want to see happen.
So good. All right, Haley, let's get the final comment, and then we'll see. After we process her comment, I think I'd like for you to close us out in prayer. And not that we're in a rush, but we'll probably have people starting to fall off, but based on the time available. Or if there's anything else you'd like to say, we can make time for it as well.
I think I got the last of it in. Thank you guys for letting me.
Okay, good. All right. Let's see. Haley's comment's still typing away. Here we go. So when I was in high school, I remember having a typing class, and we used to type on typewriters back in the day, and it was all about speed. I'm really glad I took that class because I'm really fast now.
That's awesome. Keyboard. Have y'all seen those new keyboards that are just an ungodly amount of money that are rubber duckies? And as you type, they make noises like rubber duckies.
No.
That must be an invention of COVID where everyone was working from home, but I would totally buy that.
Oh, that's great.
Thanks,
Haley said thank you. Okay, good. Well, so Lyric, if you would close this out with a prayer with the expectation that those here and those who hear it down the road when we set up the recording, that they would join you in this prayer.
Awesome.
Yeah, close us out in prayer, please.
Father, I thank you that you are the Father of light and that in you there is no darkness. And I thank you that in Romans you have charged us to put on the armor of light because the night is over. the day is at hand, Lord. Let us walk in that light, Lord, and speaking the truth in love, but walking in lockstep with you. I thank you that you are the author of life, that all of our days and times are in your hand. Father, in Revelation, you say in chapter 12, verse 11, that your people overcame Satan by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, because they did not love their lives unto death. And then the verse after, Lord, it says that the devil was furious because he knows his time is short. I ask you, Lord, that we will walk in your armor, that we will walk in your word, that we will walk in the calling that you have set before us with our eyes fixed on you, Lord, that we will love life because we understand that we have been made in your image, Father, and that Satan is a roaring lion prowling around seeking that, and who he may devour, because he hates you. He hates your image bearers. So Father, let us walk in this charge that you have given us, but also realizing, Lord, that we walk with an easy yoke through your son, Jesus. That the weight of this, Lord, though heavy, has been alleviated in a way that we can actually walk in joy in the midst of the darkness, that we can walk in peace, that we can walk in fellowship with a great high priest who actually understands and empathizes with our struggles on every level. I thank you, Lord, that as each one of these ministry leaders is here and listening later, perhaps, that they would have a renewed understanding that they are not alone, that you are walking with them, that the love that you are sending through them to others, you have for them as well. Take away any loneliness, any burden, and let them walk in renewed strength and life through Jesus Christ. I thank you for the time that we have, that each and every one of us has been put here for such a time as this. Let us walk with sober minds and hearts that are fixed, Father, on expressing the life-giving, spirit-animating freedom that is in Jesus Christ, because as you said, the one that the Son sets free is free indeed. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for being here.